Welcome once again to Wednesday Warriors, the show where I go through the weekly comic solicitations and pick out what interests me the most, and hopefully you as well. My name is Alex, and we've got ourselves another good week of comics to talk about. Now, this week will be not quite as packed to the brim as last week was, but there's still a bunch of quality entries in here that are worth discussing, so let's get right to it. The first thing that jumped out to me was Medicine by Action Labs Danger Zone imprint, and looks to be by Jeff Dyer, Mark McKeon, and David Bram. Now, this story is about healthcare for supervillains, apparently. It looks like a team of doctors are blackmailed by some supervillains into providing healthcare for the bad guys, and it becomes a moral struggle for these doctors to, have to protect these, supervillains, knowing full well that if they're able to save them, they're going to go on another crime spree and, cause more damage and kill more people. On, the basic premise, that sounds like a fantastic book to do. This collects the first 3 issues of the series and is going for $11.99. I don't know anything about this creative team, but that premise is really fascinating, so I'm personally willing to take the shot on it, and you should take a look at it too if it's at your comic shop. Next up, we have The Lost Boys, which is by Tim Seeley, Scott Godlewski, and looks like possibly covers by Tony Harris. I'm not sure if he does interiors, at least judging by the solicitations. And at first thought this was just going to be an adaptation of the, 80s film, but it looks like it's actually going to be a sequel to that film, so I don't have a lot else to add to that. I mean, if you're a fan of The Lost Boys, this would probably be right up your alley. I enjoy the film enough, and I'd be willing to, give that one a shot. Looks like it's going to be collecting 6 issues for $16.99, so that's a really solid deal. I'd recommend checking that one out too. Another DC book that's worth discussing, and this one's been hyped for a while now, is Mr. Miracle #1, written by Tom King with art by Mitch Gerads. And this is about Mr. Miracle, the character from the New Gods who can basically escape anything. I don't know too much about Mr. Miracle. Looks like the premise of it looks to be him trying to escape death, and it does appear to be a maxi series. At least from the way solicitations were saying, it looks like it's at least 1 through 12. I guess we'll see where it goes from there. I personally have not read much from Tom King, but I do know that he is one of the new writers who's on fire with the industry right now. I've heard great things about Vision, great things about Sheriff of Babylon, great things about his Batman run, though I've heard some other people don't like it, but some people really love it, so I'm kind of curious maybe to try out some more of that. And then he also did, it was a DC story that almost got canceled, but then got the finish and everyone loves it. It's not quite coming to my head at the moment, but it's another DC book. It was kind of one of those books that really got him onto the map. Sorry, I'm sure it'll come to me after I'm done recording. But right now, that is going for $3.99 for Mr. Miracle issue 1. And like I said, if I forgot to mention it, Mitch Gerads does the art. He's a fantastic artist. Tom King's a good writer from what little I've read of him, so I would definitely be interested in checking this one out, and you should too. Now, this one is probably right up my alley. It's Intertwined, the trade paperback, which appears to be by Fabrice Sapolsky and Fred Pham Chuang. Now, I probably butchered that other last name there, so I do apologize about that. But this is by Dynamite Entertainment, and I read some Dynamite here and there, not a ton, but this looked really cool. The way they're pitching it, and I'm honestly just going to leave it at that, because it looks fantastic with the art, and the premise alone is just kind of like, you know how sometimes you just kind of need to hear like the elevator pitch, and you're like, okay, I'm going to kind of check that out regardless, so I'm just going to kind of go into it blind. That's the way this is for me. Basically, it's a kung fu noir, and that just sounds amazing. Like, I've always kind of wanted to see some more like kung fu crime stories, and you throw noir into there for 1971 in Chinatown. That's brilliant. I'm all over that. So I'm probably actually going to pick that one up over all of these save the next one. Like, almost all of these I'm probably going to pick up at some point, but I really want to track this one down right away at the comic shop. Except this next one's going to be the one I'm guaranteed picking up. Hate to say it, but my Brubaker flag is showing, and this is Kill or Be Killed Volume 2. The amazing supernatural crime series by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, and this is incredible. It's kind of a given with Brubaker and Phillips since they're one of the best creative teams in comics today, but they're one of the best creative teams in comics today, putting out some of the best comic books on the stands, and it's going to be collecting issues 5 through 10 for $16.99. Still a solid deal on that, and I've already picked up the single issues, but because I'm such a hardcore Brubaker and Phillips fan, I am going to be buying the trade too. I know it's really, really hardcore Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips fan, but if you like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips and you haven't picked this up, now's a good time to get into this series. You can go through the first 10 issues, and believe me, it's well worth it. It's fantastic stuff. Potentially, I don't know, at some point I'll have to go through like his Image works and determine like which of those is his best. It might be better than Fatale. We'll have to see. 2 trades in, it's making a case for it. Another Image book that's worth discussing is Redlands issue 1, which is written by Jordi Belair, art by Vanessa Del Rey, and I'm not sure if Vanessa Del Rey is going to be doing the colors or if Jordi will be doing those too. For those of you who don't know, Jordi Belair is easily one of the most recognizable colorists in the industry, right up there with Dave Stewart and a couple others. And it's really exciting to see her try her hand at writing. I'm not sure if this is her first comic or if she's done a few indies here or there, but the premise for this one is, looks like the police are having to fend off a small town from a coven of killer witches, which, honestly, that sounds awesome. It's $3.99 for the first issue. I'm sure that'll be more than worth it, given the pedigree behind this book. Vanessa Del Rey is also an amazing artist if you haven't seen her work. It's fantastic. So definitely check that one out as well. I think that's probably going to be another possible hit Image book. I don't know, like, it's kind of hard to always gauge like the major hits for Image, but this kind of has the potential to be. We'll see. And finally, we have Catalyst Prime's Excel issue 3, written by Joe Casey, art by Damian Scott. And Joe Casey's another one of my favorites right now in the comic book industry. His take on superheroes is always some of the most unique stuff around, and his take on a speedster is just plain fascinating. I've gone into detail about it in other videos, particularly the podcast from 2 weeks back, I believe, and you should definitely check it out. The Catalyst Prime universe, once again, is putting out some amazing books, and I'm really excited to see where issue 3 goes for this series. It's going for $3.99 as well for issue 3. And that about does it for Wednesday Warriors. Like I told you, it's not quite as lengthy as the other ones. Feel free to shout out and tell me what you think about this. Like I said, just kind of making this series on the fly here, so we'll kind of come into our format very soon for this. But feel free to post a comment below letting me know which of the books you're going to be checking out and which of the ones I posted interest you. I'd be curious to hear what your pull list is going to be for the week. And thank you once again for watching, and I will see you next week.